Hey, everyone. This is Heidi St. John. You guys, welcome back to the podcast. We are inching our way up to Christmas. I hope you guys are having a wonderful season with your family and just getting the most out of this most wonderful time of the year. And I am thrilled today to have one of my favorite people on the show. Dr. Roger Smith is going to join me today, and we are going to talk about parenting with influence. Stick around. I think you're going to be encouraged. All right, you guys. Well, you know that I am a huge fan of parents engaging with their children. And one of the things that we notice here at the Homeschool Resource Center and have been, my husband and I have been actively involved in for many, many years, is just trying to remind parents that they are the primary influence in the lives of their children. This is why education is so important. This is why we believe so much in homeschooling and why we don't want to encourage parents to disengage from parenting. And you guys are going to love my friend, Dr. Roger Smith. After 30 years of practicing medicine, he was honored as the 2021 Louisiana Rural Physician of the Year. And in 2022, he released his first book, Parenting with Influence, Shifting Your Parenting Style as You and Your Child Grow. He and his wife, my good friend Jan, mentor young couples as they seek to have healthy relationships with one another. Dr. Smith brings together years of medical and psychosocial research, years of working with youth in a variety of organizations, as well as his own ups and downs as a parent of 4 stubborn children. You guys are going to love him as much as I do. Hey, my friend, Dr. Roger, welcome to the show.
It is my pleasure to be here.
Well, you and I have been palling around with our spouses now for several years. You down there in the beautiful state of Louisiana and me all the way up here in Southwest Washington State. We've had you in our home a couple of times. It's been a joy to get to know you and to see your heart, especially for parents. And I have observed this over the years, and I'm thrilled. You got your book written. Good job. I wish I had an applause button for you, my friend.
Well, it's been a long journey, and we resisted in writing anything until we felt like we had gone through all the different stages. It's easy to be an expert in the early stages, and so and we declare the end from somewhere in the middle, and so the work has been ongoing for many years, but we finally got it in print to where we felt like it was a helpful resource, and hopefully it does give encouragement, comfort, guidance to parents, because that's really is our heart. Is we just want to help people to be successful in their homes and to feel like they are launching their children well and they are loving their children well, and their home is a great place to be, and that's what it's all about.
I love that. So listeners here are often asking me questions about parenting, and, they're anywhere from brand new parents to parents of young adults, and every stage is a little bit different, and you have written from a really unique perspective. So tell us a little bit about the background of the book.
Well, I was facing a crisis moment with one of my children when he was 13. In fact, it was my third child. We thought we had done a great job with the first 2, and and so they proved to be some of the easier children. And we all have some easy ones and we have some hard ones, and our hard one taught us the most. And so in that pivotal moment, I realized that I had been trying to control a lot of things that I needed to be giving that control to the child and equipping them to manage that control. And and our end result, we would have said even then, our end result, our end desire was for them to have self-control. And that is a desirable trait even in ourselves. We want to be under self-control. And but we were doing some things that really was short-circuiting that transfer of control. And that really was helped us to understand some parenting principles that are built into this book, and talking about the different stages. What does it look like? What can they handle? What can we handle at different stages of their development? And so that was the premise of the book, is shifting your parenting style as both you and your child grow. And we do have to adjust, and we can't handle a teenager like we do a toddler. So sometimes we try to.
And sometimes they have it coming.
Yeah.
And that's it. But, it really, you're right. And, you and I have talked about this before, just the fact that every child is different. And so maybe I have 7 children. What worked with my first child didn't work with my 4th child. And what worked with my 4th child didn't work with my number 7. We really have to be able to flow and flex and move in the seasons of parenting. And in your book, after in the introduction, you talk about the fact that you hope to help parents avoid a lot of what is so common in parenting, which is conflict with teens. Yeah. So do you feel like the book was written for parents in the teen or the preteen period, or you look at the whole shebang?
And, that's whenever the crisis comes, is in the teen years. But really, the work is building up to the teen years. And, some people don't really get engaged in the adjustment process until they're in the throes of the teen years. And so, there's still hope. But if you're in the early years, that's really when you can lay the foundation for a great teenage parent-child relationship. And so it is so important to get started early. And it's kind of like the old adage about planting a tree. It says the best time to plant a tree is 25 years ago. The second best time is today. And in parenting, the best time to learn about all these things whenever they're very young. The second best time to learn about how to respond to the changes is today. So we just hope people will engage and begin to, just get wiser as a parent. And it'll be easier the more wisdom we have and understanding our children. So, the one thing you mentioned, you had said with your 7 children that each of them were different. But you know what? Yeah. You were different with each one of them because you were growing. And so there were different things going on in your life, and there were different understanding that you had. So all of that, makes it different for every child.
Yeah, and I think it's easy for parents. I know it certainly is for me, and I've talked to several of my mom friends over the years, that mothers can be very easily guilted by children who are like, but how come you didn't do this with so-and-so? And you never, so-and-so never got in trouble for that. Or I can't remember who I was talking to Sailor the other day. We have a long-standing tradition in our home that the girls get their ears pierced when they turn 13. It's kind of a rite of passage. I did this with Savannah. Well, apparently, Sierra, this is going to be hard for you to imagine, Sierra slipped under the radar somehow. So she tells Sailor the other day that I let her get a double piercing. Well, I don't remember doing that. I mean, not before she was 13, but when she was in high school. So my daughter Sydney is having this conversation with Sailor, and they corner me at the mall, and they're like, hey, Mom, Sierra told us that you let her get her double piercing before she graduated from high school. Can we do that? And I was like, oh, no. We're not. I said, if you want to do that after you turn 18, you got my blessing. I just won't pay for it. But it was so funny to look back and think, goodness, that was 28 years ago when Sierra was born. I'm a different person than I am right now. And I think that's a good thing for us to acknowledge. We're all just moving. We're on a journey, every single one of us, parents and kids.
Yeah. And some of the things that seemed like huge battles in the early years of our parenting, we realize
so true.
Those were not hills to die on. And so
yeah. That's right. So, and you tell your kids are like, how come so-and-so got in trouble for that? Because your mom was naive. That's why. If you want to go ahead and wear, 16 different shades of plaid to school today, I don't care. Wear whatever you want. I'm over. A lot of us come into parenting, having just experienced, like I came into it experiencing not a happy home. I didn't have good influences in my life when I was a young person. But you've talked about this a bit. Who were some of the people who influenced you in your parenting and your ideas that you brought to the table?
We're all influenced by our family of origin, good and bad. So even the best homes have something bad that we are bringing along as, quote, baggage, And so we're all influenced by that family of origin. But along our journey in our parenting path, we were really influenced even before we had children. We start seeing modeling from other individuals. There was a gentleman named Rodney Wood that influenced us in college, really helped us in our spiritual pursuits and understanding our relationship to other people and discipleship. That was his passion, was discipleship. But we got to see it close and personal, his management and his care of his children and how he he looked to their future. And so I learned a lot of things through him. We had pastors along the way that we loved their families, and they allowed us into their home, and so getting to see people in their home, you get to see the real deal. And so the good and the bad and the ugly. So we saw good and bad parenting styles. And then, of course, the real influences are those that we read. One of my favorite authors that I've been reading his stuff off and on over the last, 30 or 40 years, Dr. Ross Campbell, who's now deceased, but he had some very common sense, practical concepts that I use to this day. And a lot of his teachings are kind of embedded in the book, in a little bit different terminology, but he really influenced me. And there are others, but those are some of the ones along the way. So I would love to hear who influenced you, because you have done a great job with your kids, both you and Jay.
I think I would say probably I was influenced by a lot of people, by the writings of Dr. Dobson.
Yeah.
Early on in my parenting. And Jay and I were really blessed to have wonderful mentors in our lives, just people that would come into us and just sit at our kitchen table with us and just sort of witness the good, the bad, and the ugly. I think it's like what you were saying. I think when you go to someone's home, you can really see what their family is like. And one of those people in particular, they weren't any parenting gurus or anything, but they had 5 children. At that point, I only had 2. And I was like, well, who in their right mind would have 5 children? I just could not understand, why someone would do such a thing. And I remember her sitting in my living room one day and just looking at all my stack of parenting books. And she said, Heidi, I noticed that you got all kinds of parenting books here. And I was, yes, I do. I'm gonna kill it at this parenting thing. She said, I noticed that your Bible is missing. And it was just this sort of, this like, ouch. She wasn't trying to hurt my feelings, but she was saying, and she did say, listen, if you read all these books, but you don't spend time in the Bible, it'll kind of be for nothing. And if you didn't have access to any of these books, the Bible would be enough. And that was a huge deal. But a lot of people, Roger, it's a pretty brave thing to write about parenting. I remember talking to Dennis Rainey years ago when I was on his show. And I said, you need to write a book about shepherding adult kids. And he's like, oh, no, I would never do that. And I'm like, why wouldn't you do that? He said, because the evidence is still alive. Like, I don't want to do that. But there's a lot of people out there, talking about parenting, a lot of experts. And you have 4 adult children, and I've been honored to meet most of them. They're wonderful, wonderful human beings. What did they think about your teaching and parenting? And what did they, because really people are going to start out, that's what they do to my kids. Boy, I'll tell you what, what's it like to live in Heidi St. John's house? And I'm like, what you telling them? So how's that going for you?
We have a very honest relationship with our children. And there are things that they look at and say, I would like for this to have gone differently. But by and large, they know that we lived honestly and openly. And the relationship is what trumps everything,
Yes.
There were times where we were rules heavy, and they could probably tell you about times where we were a little bit uptight as parents, and we were trying to bear down, but the times that they remember most are the times where we were really majoring on the relationship and enjoying one another, loving one another, and cheering one another on. And they were really excited for me to actually get the writing in print. One, they wanted to kind of capsulize their childhood, but also, there are things that we assume that they know because they lived it. But maybe they didn't know why we were doing certain things. And so it's been good to hear their feedback on different aspects of the book. And all along the way, I was asking them for, what are some stories that you remember that help us to illustrate this point from our living together and journeying, the growing up together. So,
and then occasionally you're like, yeah, not that story. Pick a different one. Pick a different story. I introduced, obviously, you're a physician practicing medicine in Louisiana. And I always think it's fascinating to talk to men and women who have, been trained in the practice of medicine, whether it's pediatrics or whatever it is. I used to work for East Portland Pediatrics for 7 years. I worked there and had good conversations with the physicians I worked with. How do you feel like it's kind of changed you, prepared you as you're, kind of entering into this season where you really are transitioning into coaching parents? Because really, if you're a pediatric doctor, you're coaching parents a lot.
Yeah. The biggest thing that it really helped me in is that, there's a range of normal. And people lose sight of that. Is they feel like if they haven't potty trained at, at a certain time mark, that they're all frantic about things. And so the training really helps me to really understand that there's a range of normal of a lot of different things. There's social development, there's physical development, all kinds of things. So I think in many ways, the medical training really helped me to not panic so much and really to observe what was going on. And so hopefully in the writing, the reason I wrote it in stages is so that people can see that there is a transition in the children, and they go, oh yeah, my child is right here, and this is the things that they're thinking about. These are the things that they are growing and developing in, and those things do make a difference in how we should handle situations and how we can coach and encourage them along. And so all that medical training of child development really helped guide the understanding of parenting.
That's an amazing thing, that a gift really that you're able to bring to the table. I wrote, as you know, years ago, I wrote a book called Becoming Mom Strong. And in the beginning of it, I said, I feel like this generation of parents is being faced with things, grappling with things that previous generations didn't even see coming. Like, we didn't know when cell phones came out that they could be addicting, or when social media, when we all got on Facebook, that maybe that wasn't a great idea for our 11-year-old because you had to be on it for 10 or 12 years to figure it out, right? So how do you approach the issues that are challenging parents that are really stemming from modern technology?
I first will say it is a difficult time for children. Everything is intense. The whole issue of bullying you could turn it off when you went home because it was a safe place. The bully was not there. But now, with cell phones and social media and constant media barrage, you can't get away from the issues. They follow you even into your own bedroom. And so the issues, though they are the same issues, they're much more intense. And so our role as a parent is very, very important that we become the place of comfort and consolation, and that they find us as a safe place to say, this is what's going on. And that kind of trust is a relationship that's not based in rules. We can't fix that with another, you can't do this, you can't do that, or here's the cutoff time, or whatever the rule is. The more it's going to be more and more imperative that the relationship is so strong that they come to us whenever the issue has gotten too intense for them. And so the cell phone is kind of pivotal to a lot of these issues. The social media, the continuous access, and so sometimes we rescue them from their own world by saying, okay, we're going to cut it off, not as punishment, but as protection. So it's that mindset, of we're on the same team. We are we're here to protect you and take care of you. And so that kind of relationship develops over time. And sometimes it may look like a rule, but it shouldn't feel harsh. And that's the thing that I would say to parents is we're dealing with all these technology issues. A kind heart, but a constant heart, So it's hard for them to turn it off because they're trying to see who's dogpiling on the last comment about them. And sometimes we just like. I think that your family has turned off social media comments when you were being barraged with things and saying, you just don't need to see that. And sometimes we may need to do the same thing for our children. And it may feel like a rule to them that you're taking it away, but it's really a protection. And the issues are much the same. They're just much more intense. And so I have a heart of compassion toward the children, but also the parents, because sometimes I think the emotions run higher these days.
Yeah, I agree. And I've observed, and I know that you have too, over the years, because you guys homeschooled your kids, we homeschooled ours. Yeah. There are sort of ebbs and flows that happen in the world of parenting, right? So let's say like in the early 90s, there was a pretty harsh parenting program out there that a lot of parents followed. And I think the fruit of that, of course, you don't know it when you're, because we're all just doing the best we can, right? Even when we make mistakes, they come from a good place, coming from a good heart. But you, like my husband and myself, I mean, we've got kids in our 30s now, and they kind of grew up for a while. You can get sort of swept into this sort of legalistic, rules-based approach to parenting, which the pendulum sort of over here. Then we see it swing. People realize, oh my goodness, that's not producing good fruit. And so then we overcorrect, right? We're trying so hard to not do that thing that we overcorrect, and we go into this sort of passive parenting. And I think what I'm hearing you saying is that the relationship and your heart to just love on these kids is what survives the pendulum swing. That's right. Right? It's just it's to love your children and really foster that relationship.
I definitely think we've got to be careful not to swing the pendulum to no control, no rules. I don't advocate that, but the types and the feel of it is more that the relationship rules over all of that. And
I love
that comes through as in the examples that we would use in each stage. And so I really encourage parents to try to give the children a little bit more control than they're really ready for early on. So you're training them to manage control, but it's not with haphazardness. It's an intentional transfer of control. And so it is one of those things where if we're struggling for control, we're holding on to it too long. That should tell us that we've not prepared them for that stage yet. And so it is incumbent upon us to kind of get caught up and say, okay, let's prepare you for what you're ready for, what you're able to handle right now. And so handing off control before they ask for it or before they demand it. If we hold on too long, they're going to demand control. And
then it's even harder to let go because then you feel like, well, why are they fighting me so hard for control? Now they're fighting me. Now I'm worried.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And then we feel like we've got to win. At that point, we're entrenched. We've got to win this battle. So
it's true. And I love to write down the things that you say because you're a little bit of a sage when it comes to your little quips that you say. I love that you said that there's a range of normal. And that parenting is so intense right now largely because of social media, because of our kids' access to phones and all those things. But what I love about you, and I know listeners are going to love about this book, is that you really approach parenting with a gentleness and a desire to remind parents, listen, long after you're done correcting your child, long after you close the last page of that math book and you're done teaching division for the 7,000th time, by the grace of God, you're going to have relationships with your adult children. Right. They're going to take you through the rest of your life, and that's what you're building a foundation for.
That's right. And as Jan says you are raising your grandchildren's parents. And so that's right. So yes, it's incumbent upon us to model for them well and to be kind to them. We want to see the grandchildren. It's a big deal. I mean, it really is, because you get one shot. I'm always telling parents, you get one shot at this thing. Yeah. We get one shot at parenting our kids. Focus on those relationships. It's so important. You end the book with a chapter on inspiration. Yeah.
of your children. So tell me about why you'd wrap up the book like that.
There are so many practical how-tos that people focus on, trying to get from one stage to the next. And, it almost can become robotic, and we're trying to fix things. But the big picture is that even whenever they have all the tools, the world is kind of staged to highlight your failures. And fear of failure can really paralyze you. And what our children need from us is that they need to know that we believe in them, that we know that they are equipped and they're designed perfectly for the path that they're on. And so we can launch them with kind words, with dreams, with sometimes quietness. We don't have to make a comment about every little thing. Sometimes that's inspirational.
Come on.
So I love telling one story about Emily in regard to inspiration. Emily was our second child, our only girl, and she had an opportunity during her teenage years that she was going to be in an event where Miss America was there and was the speaker. And I said, Emily, would you like to meet Miss America? And of course, she was shocked that I would even ask that question. But so of course, and so I said, okay, Emily, let's devise a plan for you to meet Miss America. And we did come up with a little plan of a gift to give her. And, I said, this person who's going to be her guide, and you need to talk to him. We came up with a plan. I said, I wasn't going to be at the event. She was going to be there by herself. And so just giving her first the permission to dream of that. Secondly, to help her think through what are some steps that I can go through to accomplish that dream. That was inspirational to her, and she was able to accomplish it. And she developed a relationship with this pen pal relationship with this Miss America many years back. But nonetheless, that was an example of how we as parents can start dreaming with our child. And that process is inspirational. So it's not just having some clever words and, you can do it. You are the champ, So it's not magic words. It is that relationship that helps build their confidence and looks at their world and say, I would like to be there, and here's the first 2 or 3 steps. And that's the importance of inspiration, is that we can give them all kinds of tools, but sometimes they just need to know that it's okay to act like the person in the next stage, whatever that next stage is for them. And to them, turning 13 is massive.
It is, right?
And
it's so true.
They need us to dream with them. And that is an important part of the parenting process that I think so many parents miss, is that we're trying to keep them in line, so to speak. And whereas I think we should be propelling them forward, and that's the inspiration message.
I love that. One of the things that I love so much about you and your wife, Jan, and I have been on the receiving end of this many times in our friendship, is that you are really good at asking questions. You guys are really good at kind of getting to the heart of the issue and really finding out what's going on underneath the surface. And you've kind of brought that to your book too, right in the appendix, right? So there's a list of questions that will foster conversations with your kids. And you have said, this is kind of a big deal, right?
It is.
Finding out where your kids are asking questions, letting these questions be open-ended. Right. Why is it so important that we do this when we're talking with our kids, no matter what age they're at?
Our natural tendency is to ask them about the details of their lives in almost a checkoff kind of way. Who was there? What did they talk about? Things like that. And those are very defined. Sometimes we ask them even yes and no answers. And when we do that, we short circuit the conversation. And our relationships are built on conversation. And that means the conversation is us telling our view of what happened. Not what happened, but our view of what happened. or our view of what was said, our feeling about how things came about. And so those kinds of things will only happen when we ask a question that doesn't have a set answer. And we define those as open-ended. And so we don't have very good practice being trained in open-ended questions. And so that's why I included that appendix, so that people can say, okay, and for what kind of open-ended question do I ask someone that's 7 versus someone who is 17? And so it just gave some examples. And these aren't magic questions, but they're hopefully people can read the questions and go, oh, okay, I can ask that same thing about their dance experience, or I can ask that same question about their encounter at a birthday party or something else, So it is simply examples of how we can train ourselves as parents to foster a conversation that's open to where we can listen and not talk.
That's hard for me. I'll tell you what, that was a zinger. Listen and don't talk. What do you mean? I mean, I talk for a living. It's very hard to listen, especially when you've already figured out what the problem is, and you, like in your head, you've diagnosed it, and you want to jump to the end and go, here you go. But what happens, and I've learned this really the hard way with my kids, is they don't feel heard.
Yeah.
Then, and I think oftentimes we lay out this, this solution for them, and we think we're helping, when really they just need to be heard. And I love that you said relationships are built on conversations. It's so important. We've got just a couple of minutes left, but you lay out characteristics of children and the parent-child relationship at every stage of development in the book. And a lot of parents feel like they have made a mess early on in their parenting journey, that the patterns are already set, that the relationship's already been established. Yeah. What do you say to the listener who's thinking, I gotta fix this. I screwed up. I'm worried. I'm worried. I've parented the wrong way.
The first message is this: children, no matter how you feel about it, children want a good relationship with their parent. They want a good relationship with their parent. We have to believe that. Sometimes we believe the lie that we are at odds with one another. And so whenever we look back and we say we made a mess of it, it is not without hope. They want us to redeem the relationship. And so we can go back, and where we've made a mess, we have to own up to it and just say, yeah, I made a mess here. I thought I was doing right.
I'm sorry.
Will you forgive me? Yes. And I want us to build a relationship going forward. And I know it's not going to happen overnight, but can we start? And so it's just an honest conversation. The older they are, the more they can have that kind of conversation. But maybe they're only, 11 and you've made a mess of it early on. Maybe it's not as mature a conversation. You just say, hey, I've done some things that I see now are not a good way to handle our relationship, and I'm making some changes, and will you change with me? And you don't have to, the older they are, the more details they want. They want to know,
so true.
Can I really trust you? Yeah. And they want to know, what pain you felt in the relationship. And so, but even if you feel like you've made a mess, they want the relationship to be better. Children who grow into their adulthood and they have a terrible relationship with their parent, they want it to be redeemed. And we need to be brave enough to make some changes. And there's hope. So you still have influence. And so the parent has influence, and we just need to use it for good. And hopefully we'll find
by the grace of God.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's right.
It's a lifelong, that influence is lifelong.
It is.
And I think for moms and dads who are, whether you're at the beginning of this thing or you're near the end of it, I think what you said is right. Kids long to be in good relationship with their parents, and parents, the onus is on the parent, right? Yeah. Especially when you're raising your children, is just to say, hey, I love you. Your kids need to know that that you love them. I remember my grandmother telling me a long time ago that if God had a refrigerator, my picture would be on it. And it really helped me see this picture of God in my mind that I probably would have missed had she not said that. And so I think sometimes we don't necessarily realize the impact of our words, just the little things, the I love yous, the open-ended questions, hey, would you like to go out for cinnamon rolls or whatever it is? And it really is a game changer. Roger Smith, you are a treasure. Where can people find your book?
My website is a great place to get it. It is at rogersmithmd.com. That is the place. It's also found where books are sold, Amazon and Barnes & Noble and those other places. So, but Roger Smith MD is a great place, and there'll be a little bonus in it if you get it from the website. So,
all right. So it's better for people to go to Roger Smith MD. And I'm so excited, Roger, to just see how God moves you guys into this new season of your life, both you and your wife, Jan. And for those of you who didn't catch it before, the book is called Parenting with Influence, Shifting Your Parenting Style as You and Your Child Grow. My friend, Dr. Roger Smith, thank you for coming on the show.
My pleasure.
If you guys want more information on Parenting with Influence, you can go to HeidiSt.John.com and scroll down to the show notes, and I will link back to all things related to this podcast today. I appreciate you guys listening. Thank you so much for helping us grow this platform, for sharing it, for leaving 5-star reviews, and for submitting your questions to me. And you can do that by going to HeidiSt.John.com/Mailbox Monday. I hope you guys have enjoyed this episode and you feel uplifted. I know I do. And I'll see you back here again at the intersection of faith and culture.